Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe. Entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Welcome to episode 80 of the Industry Angel. I've had a bit of an eventful couple of weeks. I've just returned from India and I had a great time over there meeting entrepreneurs at the Goa Business Festival. I also surprised my parents who spend the winter there, knocking on their door. And you can see the video of that on my Facebook or LinkedIn pages. I also recorded a bit of audio out there, which might be next week's episode. I've got 2 live podcasts to tell you about. If you head over to the blog section on industryangel.com, there's a post there about the February and March live shows. February 28th is in my hometown of South Shields, and this interview will be about raising awareness of digital skills, both in business and in the role of education. That's an evening session, and will be beer and pizza as well, so that should be good fun. March 9th is during the day, early morning, and I'll be in Sunderland talking with the CEO of a business that is a leader in biometric control systems. Tickets are free but limited, so I suggest you jump on soon. For listeners further afield, we'll also be live streaming the events across Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, so I hope you can make it. If you come along, let me know. I'd love to meet you. Okay, let's hear from today's guest. Today we have a business owner who has been on a journey for a dozen years now, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about the highs and lows. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Alex Ingham.
Morning, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Alex. So, you dropped me a line recently, and you're listening to the show. You've been enjoying the episodes, and you emailed in and mentioned that hopefully you might be a good guest because you'd love to share your journey with the world and maybe help others learn from some of your business journey so far, yeah?
I think so. Yeah, I always keep joking that I'm sure one day I'll write a book of my 1,000 or 10,000 mistakes, which I'm sure will be a bestseller. So, yeah, hopefully it might be of help for somebody.
I'm sure you're doing yourself a disservice, really, 10,000. So, well, listen, here you are. And thanks for getting in touch. So, 12 years, I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from this. And so you must have founded the company, 2017, 2018? When did you found?
We set up 2005, back end of 2005.
Did I just say 2017, 2018? Where I'm at? I can't do simple maths, can I?
No, nor can I, Ian, so don't worry about it.
It's too early. It's too early. The 2005, yeah, wow.
Yeah. So I've worked in the industry all my life, and I guess potentially like a lot of other people, I just fell into a job at the start. I wanted to be a football journalist when I was at school, but I forgot to study. So I was very good at snooker at the time, but not very good at studying. I left college, or I was requested to leave college. So I was basically just had to get the first job I could find, which was the instructions from my mother. I was the 4th choice of the job that was offered at £40 a week. So I didn't impress my future employers, but I got the job. And it was pretty much in the industry that I'm still in now, supplying workwear and clothing and industrial supplies. So it's my first sort of drop into that industry, which I knew nothing about. So that was back in 1990. I got a rep's job with the company I worked for, and that was only because I was the only one with a driving license. So it wasn't anything to do with any qualities at the time. So it was a really sort of fairly tough learning curve, to be honest. And then I worked for the top 2 companies in our industry a bit further on. So I sort of learned, a huge amount working for those 2 companies. But I think, go on, Ian.
No, I was going to say it's really beneficial, isn't it? When you sort of you do your apprenticeship, you pay your dues with another company, and you sometimes you make a lot of mistakes with them, and then hopefully when you start your own company, you've got that out of your system.
Oh, I think it's when I think back now, it's absolutely invaluable. I hated my first job of 7 years. I absolutely hated it. But and I didn't like how I was treated or anything like that. But it's been it's so invaluable now, I think, for I want to sort of try and treat people and manage my business. So it was hugely invaluable. It just didn't seem like it at the time, I guess.
I can totally relate to that. I started out working for a really large blue chip company and lots of process, and I hated every minute of it. And when I look back, I think, wow, that was the best thing that ever happened to you. Because when you go into an SME, straight away you're thinking of process, you're trying to put things in place, and it was actually an amazing apprenticeship, really, when you look back.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a bit more sort of experience and maturity, I think, to sort of realise that. And I know when I worked for the second of the three companies I worked for, that my boss at the time was pretty much legendary in our industry of just being an extremely tough taskmaster. And, there was many times I'd be quivering and shaking when I had to go and speak to him. But I realise now, lots of things that he was saying at the time sort of, put me in good stead for later on, but I never really appreciated it a great deal at the time, I guess.
So back then, with your floppy hair, your baseball cap on backwards, you were working in the industry you're in now, yeah. So that was workwear and that sort of stuff you've just mentioned there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I ended up working for the sort of the biggest company in the UK by turnover, really, really good family-run company, £250 million turnover. But I think I'd realised when I was there that I was, even though I was like bringing in the figures for them, as a rep, I was probably a pretty bad employee, really, because I just wanted to do things myself. And you can only do so much, can't you, when you're working for somebody else? And even though we try to give our staff, loads of ability and skills to make their own decisions for the company, I think it is quite tricky in a lot of businesses. And I remember my boss at the time, who was a real nice guy who looked after me really well. He said, Alex, he said, until you want to play with your own train set, just do as you're told. And it was a pretty sort of valuable statement, really. And I had a bit of a light bulb moment, and I bought Clive Woodward's autobiography, which I'm not a rugby fan by any stretch of imagination, but it was a brilliant book, and it sort of touched on sports and performance and business and psychology. And as soon as I read that, I thought, I can't do anything that is said in this book working for another business. So I've got to go and set my own company up, which is what we decided to do.
Okay, so you bought that train set, and that was, so what did you do? Did you fire yourself?
I put my notice in. It was we at the time. There was myself and somebody else was going to set the business up, but in the end, it was just me. We sort of planned it for 8 or 9 months. I came home and gave my wife the great news that I was going to resign. And I had a really nice job, as a lot of people do when they leave their jobs, and had a nice car and comfy role, etc., decent pay. Yeah. And we sort of, me and my wife, who's really supportive, we looked at it and thought, well, the absolute worst case scenario, if this doesn't work out, is we'll just have to move house and go to a smaller house if it goes bust. And we just thought that is the only worst thing scenario that we can think of. So in that case, we might as well just go for it. So we did. We set the business up. I put my notice in November 2005, and it was quite comical, really, because the first day I got the keys to our small business unit, it was 21st of December, so the shortest day of the year. It was pouring with rain. It was dark all day, and I walked in. We didn't have any customers or stock at the time. I walked in, the electricity wasn't working. The landlords had painted the warehouse floor the night before, so it clearly hadn't dried because it was still the middle of winter. So I was splodging through this wet paint at 8 o'clock in the morning in the dark. Didn't realise I'd walked in paint as I got back in my 12-year-old second-hand car. That was the only thing I could afford at the time. And so my car was covered in paint. It was about 8:15, and I really thought this is not a good move at all.
So you must have had a little black book, Alex, in your pocket, eh? So you've been working in the industry for so long. Then, did you think I could approach them, and were you allowed? Did you have to stay away from customers for a number of months when you left?
No, I didn't have any restrictions at all, and it clearly helps, doesn't it, when you've worked out as a rep and you've met lots of people and networked and things like that. So I basically just made loads and loads of phone calls, went to see loads of people, lots of people that I've dealt with before. And I can't even describe how indebted I am to some people that have dealt with me now for God, 24 years, 25 years now. So that's really, really pleasing. We've got some really good, strong customers that will be dealing with us today. That gave me that chance on that first day when I phoned up and said I've left my job. So the business cards I got made up at the time, I put on it that we'd give anybody a cheque for £100 if we let them down, which somebody said, get that off your card really quickly. So we changed our business cards pretty quickly in case that was going to bankrupt me.
Thinking about some of those customers then, what did you do? How could you service them so you had nothing? Did you have to quickly go and get a supply chain then?
Yeah, I knew suppliers I could go and speak to just from experience of who I dealt with previously. But I had to get a supply chain built up really quickly. The difficult thing was, I guess at the time, and I'm sure loads of people will sort of resonate with this, is I couldn't get a supply chain built up before the business was formed because I was still working for somebody. So there was no way I was going to do anything behind my sort of employer's back, from an ethical and moral reasons. So I had to try and build a supply chain at the same time as trying to get business in. So, I was sometimes going to see customers and they were saying, right, we'll give you some business. And I didn't have any idea where I was going to buy the stock from at the time. So we had to build a supply chain up as quick as possible, which we managed to do in a week or so. And then I spoke to a lot of potential customers, to see if they'd give us a chance. But it's pretty mad when you think now of getting in your car, doing the repping job, coming back, building a supply chain, then doing the goods in, the goods out, the warehouse, the picking, the packing, then delivering it. It was, you wonder how you manage to squeeze it in a day, don't you really?
You do. And just thinking back to that time, was it literally you would get the product from the supplier, would you push it straight out or would you add any value? So this is workwear. Would you embroider it, print it or anything? Was it just in and out?
No, it was a bit of both really. So if it's, footwear or gloves, it's going in and out straight away. We're putting it on the shelf, ready for customers to buy it. But if it's embroidery, it adds quite a few sort of links into the chain. So we're now at a point we've embroidered 190,000 garments. So that is a bit of a trickier job to manage for getting gear out the door, basically. But our industry is not, even though it's a simple business, it is a really, really simple business. It's not as easy as I can imagine some companies I've come across where they've got 4 or 5 products and it's on the shelf and it comes in once a month and it goes and it gets picked and it goes out. Really, we're much more of a sort of transient business in terms of stock flying in and out virtually all day. So it's completely different by the hour, really, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine actually, you've got new products that come in from your suppliers, then you've got to maybe show your clients, like, look what our new range is, and a bit of a solution selling actually.
It is. And also when we set up, I had this vision of creating more of like a boutique offering service. So instead of, being a big national company where your customers were just a number and they bought what we sold and that was it, I wanted to create much more of a sort of bespoke offering for each customer. So, customer A wants us to deal with them like this and customer B wants us to deal with them like that. And we're still doing that to this day as best we can. And we make errors every day, but that's how we're trying to do it, much more of a customer focused, customer centric business, really. So I think that's where our USP is against sort of our bigger competitors. But everybody says they offer a great service, don't they? So we need to prove that we can do it, really.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. So thinking about your employee levels, what's it look like at the moment?
We're at 13 staff. It floats around that most of the time at the moment. It's interesting, really, because you obviously are sometimes judged on your employee levels, but you're also judged on how efficient you can make your business. So we're continually trying, me and my warehouse team have got I've got a real strong team overall, real strong warehouse team. They're wanting us to look at more efficient ways. So we're looking at putting scanners in this year for picking and packing and goods in, which makes work a heck of a lot more efficient, which benefits the customer. It theoretically means we don't need to employ as many staff, which, as I say, we often get judged on how many staff we employ, of that being a good thing. But on the flip side, we need to make the machine as lean and as efficient as possible, really. So we've generally sort of added, I guess we've been on the go 13 years, we've got 13 staff. So we've pretty much added an extra employee each year up to where we are now at sort of, 2.5 million turnover.
Excellent. The reason I ask is because I'm sure listeners out there sometimes get concerned about this becoming a bit of an HR manager. So you kind of set out to do the business, and then suddenly when you've got 13 employees around you, do you then have to deal with lots of the day-to-day queries from staff?
Oh, it's a brilliant point, and I don't mind saying any of this, and I don't mind any of my staff hearing any of this, but it is a absolutely daily task now for me. And we're not big enough to have a HR manager, but I will be dealing with a HR issue every single day, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or a performance issue. It might just be somebody off ill that day, and we've got to manage it. In a small team. It could be a multitude of things. It could be relatives not very well and things like that. I had a guy yesterday, our longest serving employee, really good employee. He came in late because he had a flat tire, but it still impacts on the business, and it is every day. And I really try to plan my day pretty well and structured now, that I put at least about an hour of my time in each day devoted to the guys and the team, so I'll endeavour to go and speak to everybody, make sure everybody's all right, make sure there's nothing sort of in the background that's going to cause problems for them or anything I can help with. But it is a definite day-to-day job. And I start to sort of bore people with a joke that isn't really funny, actually. But in my office, I've got two doors. One leads into the warehouse and one leads into our offices. And generally, as one person leaves the office door, the warehouse door will swing open. And when somebody's left from the warehouse, the office door will swing open. There seems to be some sort of automated machine. So I'm always dealing with somebody all day long, really.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you kind of answered that openly, because I think that is certainly an issue in business. You don't set out to do that, but then it suddenly becomes that you're an HR manager. So thinking about that, I was going to say, would you say you're more operational now? And when do you get a chance to do that strategic work then?
Yeah, I'm trying to plan it as much as I can, and I think really you can't even get to that stage. This is my opinion. You can't even get to that stage until you've got good staff that are doing more of the day-to-day work. And I was really fortunate being introduced to a local business coach 12, 13 years ago, and he told me to read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and I read that, and that was all about systemizing your business. Saying McDonald's is one of the greatest businesses in the world because it's such a great franchise, and you've got 16-year-old kids that can't tidy the bedrooms, but they can run a business. And I thought that was really valuable at the time, and it was great that I read it 13 years ago and, not now, because that taught me you've got to try and put as much time into working on the business as in the business. And as the last, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years have gone now, it's worked really well. That I'm still doing stuff day to day that maybe I shouldn't do, but as each week and month goes by, I'm trying to ensure that I'm doing more sort of strategic stuff that brings value to the business and helps the employees more than doing small day to day stuff that they don't need me to do. But you need a good team behind you to do that, to be honest, don't you?
Yeah, I'm sure people listening to this can totally relate to that. I mean, sometimes I speak to clients and I'll say, have you got your long-term plan? Have you got a 3-year plan? Does this dovetail into your kind of your 12-month plan? And, people aren't alone when they don't actually have a plan. They're just in the trenches, Oh,
most definitely. And I think even if you've got a plan, there's loads of people I've spoke to over the years when they tell me what they're doing in the day, and I'm trying to use my experience and saying, why are you doing that job? And I've been told that before. Yeah. I remember being told by somebody, and it wasn't long ago. It was only about 3 years ago, and I was spending sort of half a day in we just moved at the time, and I was spending half a day in our warehouse each day, just making sure everything was running right. And a really wise person said, "Why are you doing that every day?" And I said, "Well, I'm just making sure it's running right." And he said, "Well, is it?" And I said, "Yeah, it is, yeah." And he said, "So what are you doing that for then?" And it was like, I almost like crying with the most stupidest question he'd asked me. And, I'd done it for like 6 weeks. And he said, well, why are you doing it? And I said, well, we're busy in there. And he said, but it's working, isn't it? I said, yeah, it is. So why are you doing it? And somebody said to me years ago that I should value my time by what the turnover of the company is. So, on the basis of, turnover £2.5 million, that's £2,000 an hour. So why would I work in the warehouse or the stationery? It just doesn't make sense.
No, I totally agree. And sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees, can you? But
you need people sometimes to ask you the most blatantly stupid questions to realise how blatantly stupid you've been with some of your decision making, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's stupid. I just think you're in the zone. I mean, I do a lot of this kind of business coaching role, and I meet clients, and to be honest, I'm not telling them rocket science. I'm not, coming up with this great plan and strategy. It's just asking the kind of sometimes blaringly obvious questions, and just that kind of, it comes to the head and go, yeah, why didn't I think of that?
Oh, most without a shadow of a doubt, and it's sort of, I've now started to log my time every day, and then I look to see what jobs I've been doing, and then work out should I have done that or shouldn't have done it, and then I try and delegate if I can, really, and then it just adds more value to the business.
Yeah, no, that's great. And actually, we've just been talking there about planning and things like that. So, what is the plan then? What is success like? What's your next sort of goals for the business?
Well, we've grown really well over the last 12 or 13 years. We've grown every single year, so that's great. But over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, we've been aware of certainly one customer having a big share of our business, and we've sort of put quite a lot of plans in place that if that ever ended, that we could cope with it. We think it potentially could end this year, which, is through no fault of our own or anything, but it's just the way it goes sometimes. So we've put some real robust, strong plans in. So we've launched a project called Project 2020. So we're doing pretty well online at the moment, and that's been quite a big focus. And by 2020, we want to be in a position that we're interacting with 4 million visitors a year through our site. We're looking to drive revenues up to 10 million a year through the site, which we think is all viable and achievable with lots of different jobs and projects that we're doing with it. So we're going to be opening it. The site's grown really well over the last 2-3 years, and we've used the web platform from Visualsoft, who've done a great job, and we're now in a position that this year we're going to launch in Germany and we're going to launch in France. So we're going to launch an misupplies.de site, misupplies.fr. The customer's going to get the feel of buying from a French site. It's all going to be in their languages. And we think that's going to help with revenues. We've done decent market research that we know we've got a good proposition for those countries. And I think it really helps then that if the UK economy has a downturn, which, we've gone through a couple of really tough ones in the last 10 years, as everybody knows, we're not going to be as over-dependent on the UK economy or the Northeast economy or the Tees Valley economy, because we're going to be hopefully building a strong business in Germany and France and other countries in Europe. So it's a pretty big plan, really.
That's great. You're kind of spreading the risk a little bit, and that's very strategic.
Yeah, we're trying to spread the risk on everything now. So whether it's employees, we're not dependent on one employee. We're not dependent on a brand. We're not dependent on one product or one customer or one supplier. And we've definitely not got it nailed, and we probably never have it perfect. But we are trying to get to the point where we can try and spread the risk on everything possible, really.
I smiled there when you said about employees. I used to work with a guy who used to say, anybody who is indispensable must be sacked.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I said to one of my colleagues about 6 weeks ago, I said, you're our weakest link at the moment because nobody knows how to do your job at the moment. So and he admits, he's aware of it as well, so because he does such a technical job for us, we need to be able to manage that a little bit better, really. But yeah, it is right. And I've seen employees over the years when I've worked elsewhere that almost sort of hide the work from other people to make themselves so valuable. Yeah, and you're right. Yeah. They're the ones that need to go, aren't they?
Yeah. So the e-commerce side, really interesting now that you kind of broke out into France and Germany. So did you go on any trade missions, or did you engage with any of the kind of government trade mission led market visits, or?
No, nothing like that at all, really. We often do a lot of things on the fly, to be honest. So we know we're pretty strong online. We know we're pretty strong abroad anyway. We're not doing much marketing abroad, but we've delivered to 29 countries in the last month anyway. So we've got pretty good experience of how it works and what the customer experience is going to be, how quick they're going to get their order, how we manage their returns, all that sort of thing. So no, there's not been any sort of trade missions or anything. I don't think there's any need from our aspect. But we've had some real good advice from a couple of government organisations that help with, like DTI and stuff like that have helped and advised us, of how to work through the legalities and make sure we're registered in these countries and things like that. So the main bit has just been market research, at looking at sites. And we know that, Germany, for example, our site is a lot stronger than any site there. We can deliver cheaper into there than they can deliver cheaper into the UK. So it's really been more market research and actually travelling and going to speak to anybody. And pretty much every day we're just constantly doing market research. Either I am or other people are on competitors' sites, or trying to work out what a customer needs that they're not getting at the moment, really.
Do you think that's really important in business, Alex, to look over the fence and see what your competitors are doing, and also really have a deeper understanding of what your customers are doing then?
Massively. Yeah, I think I try to ensure, and it gets more difficult as the company gets bigger, but I'm always trying to speak to every single one of our customers, at least every couple of months. I've got a really, really strong business manager that manages our B2B clients, but, I'm always trying to speak to all our customers to understand what they need, as opposed to us thinking we're doing the right thing for them, and on a regular basis, I'll be sort of taught a lesson where I think we're doing a really good job for somebody. They tell me we're not. And when I find out the reasons why, it's because we haven't actually gone and asked the right questions at the start. So we're constantly speaking to our customers just to try and keep improving that service for them. And similarly, yeah, we keep a close eye on our competition, and, try and use that to our benefit if we can do, in terms of, offering a better solution than what they're doing. I think it's just a sensible thing to do, to know what's going on in your industry, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think also internally as well, you've mentioned operational strategy, you've mentioned the team, and what come to my mind was back in the day when you're working for that chap, and you had a good apprentice, but I think maybe the culture mightn't have been as tough. You said you were kind of shaking at the knees sometimes when you go and speak to them. Is that something that you try to instill in your staff, like a good culture? Is that something front and center?
Oh, absolutely. I'd realised pretty much from the start that I really wanted to morally, basically, I just want to be able to look people in the eye, whether it's a customer, an employee, supplier. I want to look people in the eye and know I've done a good job and I've done as much as I possibly can. And from a personal point of view, our family went through a real crappy time last year with illness and stuff. So I wasn't in work a great deal, and the company ran brilliantly. It was quite emotional to see it happen, really. It just ran brilliantly without me being in the business. And that wouldn't happen if we ran it in a dictatorial, draconian way, really. So for a good few years now, we've done things like I always liked the John Lewis profit share scheme. So we've done that for 5-6 years now. So every quarter, everybody gets a cut of the profits. So, they're sharing in the success of the business. I don't want employees to see the boss turning up in a big flash car and having lots of holidays and them thinking that they're not getting a share of it. And I'm pretty sure not everybody at every single point in time is going to think that I'm treating them the greatest, but I want to try and do as much as we can. So we do like employee profit share. We pay people to go to the gym. We do bike to work schemes. We give them all private healthcare. So because we're only a small company, we can't give people a massively structured career path of like, right, you join us, then you can be a supervisor, then a team leader, then a manager, then a director. We can't do that because it's too small.
Yeah.
So we need to do it in different ways, really. So I'm really keen that we try and look after our staff as much as possible. And to be honest, the 12, 13 staff we've got, apart from the last two that have only just joined us quite recently, I think the average sort of time they've been with us is about 5.5, 6 years. So, we've tried to look after people as best we can. And I just think it just gets paid back in spade loads. And I think the experience we went through last year when I wasn't in it a great deal, it was really valuable, and it was just great to see everybody everybody was telling me they're going to do their bit to help, and it was great, really. So I think you've just got to look after your staff. And when I look at a few other businesses dotted around, I've mentioned VisualSoft before, and, other businesses I've seen, the way they treat people, I just think you just get the rewards so much back. It really does help.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it sounds like you've got a good team. Something that I thought of straight away, and coincidentally, I was just talking to a client about this last week in terms of communication. So a business I was in a few years back, the MD would not do any communication, and it really bugged me as part of the senior management team that we didn't do that. And the reason why was the danger that a percentage of that team might look at things negatively.
Yeah.
And for me, that was penalizing 28 people for the two that might take things the wrong way. And so for me, it was like, let's just get this done. So how do you do? Do you do comm sessions? Do you communicate a lot?
Yeah, I do. Or I try to. Yeah, I pretty much share everything in the business with everybody, and I have done pretty much from day one. And again, it was reading, I don't know if it was the E-Myth, but I think it was something like that, where the advice that I'd read was, employees don't like surprises. You really want to know what's going on, and as opposed to being in the dark, like you just said there. So apart from actually saying what's in the bank, and sometimes even say that anyway, everybody knows what's going on. So with our viewpoint that there's a good chance of losing one of our biggest clients this year, our staff knew about that 6 months ago. Within an hour or so of me knowing, they knew as well. So they knew where they stood. They knew what we had to do, and they weren't going to get a shock if they heard it in Chinese whispers and then thinking jobs were going to be on the rack or anything like that. So it's pretty quickly sitting everybody down, saying, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do my best to protect everything. And I think it just empowers people more because they know what's going on. And again, I'm not saying I'm doing it perfectly, but I want people to feel empowered to make their own decisions. And I think you can only do that if you've got sort of pretty much full knowledge of the business, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you were away this year a little bit, because everyone has that transparency, they probably feel like, a good family part of the team. They want to pull around for you. So yeah, I totally agree. It's definitely the way to go, communication.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I sometimes I speak to people on this, employees of other companies, and they say, how's business? Is it going all right? And quite a lot of people just say, yeah, I think it is. We're pretty busy, but we never get told. I just find that really strange, really. I don't know why.
I do as well.
I don't know why an employer wouldn't want to sort of utilise good staff and give them more knowledge to work with, really.
So have you done awards? I mean, I was just thinking there, when we used to put in for awards, it used to be great because there's nothing better than winning an award and bringing it back to the staff, or the staff receiving the award, and it really just does give a lift. So is that a route you go down?
Up until a couple of years ago, it wasn't really, and I never thought it was particularly important, which I was completely wrong with that viewpoint. And I spoke to a really, really good guy called Mike Matthews that runs NIFCO, who, is a bloke who knows what he's talking about. And he was telling me, you need to get your name out. You need people to know what you do and what you're good at. And, we were shortlisted 2 years ago for the Best Small Business Award in Teesside. In the Northeast Business Awards, and we were runners up in that, and that was brilliant. It was a great experience, real nice evening. It was just great for our staff, and it just showed that there was recognition for the work that we're all doing. So that was brilliant. Last year we were shortlisted again and we won it, which was even better.
Well done.
So, and hopefully this year we're shortlisted again. We don't know yet. We'll probably know next week. But we're hoping we're shortlisted again, which, to be shortlisted 3 times, people hopefully will think, what a great business. But they might also think, God, he's still in the Small Business Award. He needs to be going for a bigger award, maybe.
It's an interesting point. You were talking about growth then and going to the £10 million plan. And I had this conversation with a client not so long ago. The conversation was, do you need to grow? And, when you sit back and actually think, do we need to grow? And how do you grow? Is it turnover? Is it staff? Is it, just sometimes actually thinking about that, can come up with lots of different ideas.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously there's quite a few people that potentially run a really good £2 million business, but they don't want to grow. And I guess that's almost like a lifestyle business, even though it's a good, sturdy business, isn't it? I think because of my sort of background as a sales rep before setting the business up, I had to grow every year. You know, it didn't matter what cock and bull story I came up with of like, you know, the world was ending. I was always told I had to grow my sales. So, you know, because that's been sort of embedded in me, it's still embedded in me, and we have to grow every year. And there's some people that said, don't worry if you don't grow. And my viewpoint is, if we don't grow, we're going backwards and we're going to start dying. So, you know, customers drop off, don't they? They shut down. You know, we've had really, really good customers move to Poland and things like that, you know, which you can't do much about. So you've got to go and look for new revenue streams. You've got to look for new avenues. You've got to look for new customers and just keep sort of topping that funnel up a little bit. So we will never, ever stop trying to grow. That is just absolutely in our remit from start to finish.
Great. Well, that's been an excellent insight. I'm looking at the time now. We've had half an hour or so. So is there anything else, Alex, you want to leave us with? Is there anything on your burning list of questions that you might have wanted to get in?
Oh my gosh. I think for a quick 30-second overview, I think if I was to sort of share any mistakes or experiences, I tell people to always know the numbers, know the margins, know the cash, know the worst case scenario, speak to your customers, and absolutely value your time and your staff and your customers and your suppliers. You've got to value that. That's so important. Yeah.
And I would probably add to that is really just collaborate and have some peers that you can speak with, because it can be a lonely journey, can't it?
Ian, my last word I've written down here was about peers, and I think it's massive, isn't it? I've almost viewed it like a bit of an adrenaline shot these days, that I try to every couple of weeks do something that I know is going to give me that adrenaline boost, whether it's visiting a really good business, speaking to peers, doing something like this, something just to keep you going, because it's sometimes a bit of a dark, lonely road, isn't it, on your own? And I think speaking to other people and sharing experiences is brilliant from both sides. You know, you can share your experiences, they can help you, and I think it's absolutely valuable. And you know, why not try and utilize lots of other people's experience, really?
100%. And that's why you're on the show today, and that's why the show's here, Alex.
Yeah, cheers. It's been great.
Excellent. So one more question from me. You mentioned Clive Woodward was a bit of a catalyst. Did you tell him?
I don't think I ever did, but I don't think I've ever met him either.
Right. No. I want you to email him, tweet him, whatever you can do to get there, let him know.
Yeah, that's a really good point, considering it was 15 years ago I read the book.
Yeah. Pointing him at the show.
I will do it today.
Excellent. Good, man. Well, Alex, thanks so much for your time. It's been amazing. Hey, listen, best luck with the awards and best luck with the future.
Yeah, thanks for having us in. It's been real fun.
Thanks to Alex Ingham from MI Supplies. I really enjoyed hearing that business journey, and the last summary was perfect for me, you know, around staff, customers, knowing your numbers. And I also loved how Alex gave props to those first clients. You know, those first clients that helped launch the company, inject a bit of cash flow to take things forward. I can totally relate to that, and I'm sure many of you can too. I hope this episode can show you that although founding a business can be tough at the beginning, it can pay off in the long run. So Alex mentioned the wet paint floor, the second-hand car, discussing with his wife about a chance of failure and receiving her support. This is typical startup life. This is something you've got to embrace. There's no point wishing your life away for the big times and looking for the big roll and money coming in. Just enjoy the game. Enjoy the camping trips rather than flying into the sunshine. Those fancy cars just depreciate. The trinkets are meaningless. Shrouds don't come with pockets. So, Alex took that risk and he's built a great business. So well done. Do you have an idea? If so, remember, ideas are just that until you execute on them. And I'd love to hear about your experience. So drop me a line, host@industryangel.com. So until next time, I'm Ian Farrer. This is the Industry Angel, and thanks for listening.